Nobody on Flight 287 ever imagined the quiet woman in Seat 11A had once flown through war zones at Mach speeds, had danced with death above the clouds, had survived missions most pilots never return from. To them, she was just another passenger, a calm figure with a worn leather backpack, eyes that watched everything without speaking, and a silence that hinted at stories no one dared to ask. Her name was Alara Quinn, and she had promised herself she would never fly again. She had left behind the runways, the titanium smell of the jet fuselage, the violent tremble of weapon-ready wings, the adrenaline of takeoff when the world beneath you shrinks like a toy set. She left it all behind 2 years ago when the mission went wrong, when her partner didn't come home, and when the sky she once loved suddenly felt like a graveyard with no walls. But fate is a strange narrator. It doesn't care what you run from. It brings you right back to the place where destiny first looked you in the eye. That morning, Flight 287 lifted from Dallas-Fort Worth like any ordinary aircraft. Children cried, businessmen typed, couples argued softly, and Alara sat still, hands clasped, breathing slowly, letting the engine's hum settle over her like a blanket she wasn't sure she wanted. She was headed to Washington, D.C., not for duty, not for honor, but for a memorial, her partner's memorial. Captain Jordan Hale, the man who flew wingtip to wingtip with her for 5 years, the man who cracked jokes when missiles chased them, the man whose last transmission haunted her dreams. Eagle 1, if I don't make it, tell the sky, I wasn't finished. Those words followed her everywhere. The stewardess approached her row, smiling. Ma'am, would you like something to drink? Alara nodded politely. Water, thank you. But as she took the cup, she hesitated. A faint vibration, too sharp, too uneven, shivered through the floor. Most passengers didn't notice, but her body did. A fighter pilot's instincts never die. They sleep like coiled steel and wake with a single tremor. She frowned, quietly listening, tilting her head. Something was off. In the cockpit, the pilots were having their own concerns. The left engine temperature was climbing. Sensors blinked, irregular warnings. A glitch, they thought. Turbulence, they hoped. But hope doesn't fix an engine at 35,000 feet. Passengers looked out windows, took photos, scrolled their phones. Only Alara watched the sky the way a warrior watches a battlefield. The turbulence hit suddenly hard enough to make drinks spill, hard enough to jerk hearts into throats. Gasps filled the cabin. The overhead lights flickered. The captain's voice came on the intercom, strained and too calm to be honest. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor technical issue with one of our engines. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Minor. That word curled in Alara's stomach like a lie. She closed her eyes, inhaled sharply, and listened again. The engine's rhythm wasn't an engine anymore. It was a heartbeat, slipping out of sync. Another shudder. Another flicker. Another vibration that whispered danger. She looked around. People laughed nervously, comforting themselves with denial. But Alara wasn't like them. She'd spent half her life reading machines, and this machine was screaming. When the explosion came, it wasn't loud. It was worse, a hollow, metallic hump that felt more than heard. The aircraft jolted violently left, dropping altitude so fast, oxygen masks swung out like frightened puppets. Screams erupted. A child cried. Someone prayed. Alara's heart didn't race. It steadied. Every instinct she buried came roaring back. The plane kept shaking. The lights dimmed to near darkness, and then the unmistakable sound of an engine winding down, dying, giving its final breath. The right engine followed. Within seconds, Flight 287 became a silent metal coffin gliding through the sky. The captain's voice, this time broken with fear, returned. We have lost both engines. Ladies and gentlemen, please brace. Static swallowed the rest. Panic spread like wildfire. People fumbled with masks. A woman screamed hysterically. A man shouted at the attendants. The cabin felt like a pressure cooker sealing itself shut. But Alara didn't move. She unbuckled her seatbelt slowly. The flight attendant raced toward her. Ma'am, you need to stay seated. Alara met her eyes, not harshly, not defiantly, but with a calm that shocked the attendant into silence. I need to speak to the captain. Alara said. You can't. It's protocol. I know the protocol, Alara replied gently, and I know what happens when a twin-engine loss hits at this altitude. They don't have time, but I do. Something in her voice, authority, confidence, or perhaps destiny, made the attendant freeze. People around her watched in disbelief as this calm, ordinary-looking woman stood up while the plane nose dipped through clouds. Alara moved through the aisle like she was walking down a runway toward a jet she already knew intimately. No stumbling, no panic, just purpose. At the cockpit door, the attendant used her key. Inside, the pilots were white-knuckled, fighting controls that barely responded. The captain turned, startled. Ma'am, you can't be here. My name is Alara Quinn, she said, stepping forward. United States Air Force. Former F-35 pilot, call sign, Phoenix. The captain blinked. The co-pilot's jaw dropped. You're Phoenix, the one from the Kunar Ridge mission. Her eyes filled with the pain she hid quickly. That was a long time ago, but right now, I'm the best chance you have. The pilots looked at each other, fear battling reason. Another alarm screamed. Altitude dropped again. The plane trembled like it might break apart. Let her sit, the co-pilot whispered. The captain reluctantly slid his seat back. Ilara took the controls, her fingers brushing familiar shapes, simpler, heavier than a jet fighter, but still a machine begging to be understood. She scanned the instruments. Both engines dead, power failing, hydraulics weak. They had 10, maybe 12 minutes. She swallowed. Phoenix, breathe, she murmured to herself. You've flown worse. Back in the cabin, the passengers clung to their seats, clueless that the woman who just entered the cockpit once flew missions only, whispered about in military corridors. Ilara steadied the aircraft, feeling its weight, its fear, its surrender. She refused to let it die. She grabbed the radio. Mayday, Mayday. This is Flight 287, declaring dual engine failure. Altitude 23,000 feet and descending. Unable to restart, static. Then Flight 287. This is NORAD. Say again. Before she could, the plane rocked violently. A wing dipped, winds sheared. Ilara fought the controls like she was wrestling a wounded beast. NORAD's voice returned. We have your signal. Stand by. 2 F-35s are being scrambled to your position. Her heartbeat paused. F-35S. Her aircraft. Her old world. The jets she once commanded like extensions of her soul. A small, broken smile touched her lips. Within minutes, the sky pierced open. 2 F-35 Lightning. Two fighters appeared beside the falling aircraft like metallic angels, slicing through clouds with lethal grace. Their presence made passengers gasp, some in terror, others in awe. Ilara tapped the radio again. F-35s. This is Flight 287. Pilot speaking, is Phoenix. A stunned silence filled the frequency. Then a voice, young, sharp, reverent, answered, Phoenix. As in the Phoenix, ma'am, it's an honor. The other F-35 pilot chimed in, incredulous. We learned your maneuvers in training. You're a legend. Ilara felt something warm and painful stir inside her. Jordan would have loved this moment. She kept her voice steady. Save the praise for later. I need vectors to the nearest runway with a long strip and clear approach. And I need you tight on my wings. If we stall, I need lift guidance. Roger that. Phoenix, the lead pilot said. We're with you to the end. She gripped the controls harder. Not the end, she thought. Not today. The two F-35s moved closer, mirroring her altitude, forming a triangle of protection around the dying aircraft. Their wings hummed, steady and powerful like two guardians, lending her borrowed strength. Passengers pressed against windows, watching fighter jets escort them through the sky. Some prayed, some cried, some whispered. The only question that mattered, who is she? The answer was coming. They just didn't know it yet. Ilara took a deep breath as she aligned the plane with the descent path. The F-35s relayed winds, elevation, glide ratios. She listened, adjusted, calculated. Phoenix, one pilot said quietly, we're honored to fly with you. Ilara looked out the cockpit window, at the jets flanking her like loyal shadows. No, she said softly, today, I'm honored to fly with you. But the storm ahead didn't care about honor. Winds roared, clouds thickened, ice formed on the wings. The plane struggled like a bird with broken feathers. Ilara braced her feet, locked her shoulders, and whispered to herself, Jordan, just guide me one more time. She forced the plane steady, inch by inch, relying on instinct older than fear. Below, the city grew larger slowly, dangerously, like fate revealing itself too late. The runway appeared in the distance, but they were too high, too fast, too heavy, and the hydraulics were failing completely. The captain realized at first, we can't land. Not without flaps. Ilara didn't blink. Watch me? The F-35 pilot spoke urgently over radio. Phoenix, this glide path is impossible. Then I'll make a new one. Because she wasn't just a pilot, she was Phoenix, the woman who rose from flames kings feared. And on that falling aircraft, surrounded by panic, engines gone, time slipping, she was ready to show the world who she really was. The dying aircraft cut through the clouds like a wounded giant, refusing to surrender. Every alarm inside the cockpit screamed at once. The control yoke trembled violently in Ilara's hands as she forced the plane into a glide profile. No commercial liner had ever attempted. The captain watched her like he was watching a miracle unfold. The co-pilot looked as if he wanted to cross himself. Neither dared to interrupt her. Not now. Not when she was working with a calm that didn't belong in a cockpit, moments from becoming a tomb. The two F-35s flanked the aircraft, one on each side, flying so close their wingtips seemed to brush the air around the crippled jet. Their small, agile frames moved with perfect precision, guiding, signaling, steadying. Phoenix, the lead pilot called out, you're coming in too hot. You need drag. We don't have drag, Ilara replied, her voice steady as steel. We only have time. She shifted power to backup systems, praying they'd last just a few more minutes. Hydraulics whined, protesting, shuddering like bones cracking under pressure. The runway loomed ahead, long, gray, unforgiving. It shimmered like a last chance carved into earth. The descent angle was wrong. Everyone could see it. The captain swallowed thickly. This landing is Phoenix. It's not survivable. Ilara didn't look away from the windshield. Nothing is survivable until it is. The plane shook again harder. A panel above her head popped loose. The cabin oxygen masks swayed like frightened pendulums. Phoenix, the younger F-35 pilot, cut in, urgency breaking through his voice. "You're my childhood hero. I watched every flight you flew. Don't focus," she snapped, but gently like a mother reminding a child to breathe. "Your job right now is to keep me centered." "Why, yes, ma'am." Her fingers tightened. Her breaths steadied. Her heartbeat became the only rhythm she trusted. The plane dipped too low. She pulled back gently to strong, and the wings would stall. Too soft and they'd miss the runway. "You're threading a needle with a building." The co-pilot whispered, "ELARA. Didn't blink. I've threaded tighter." The ground rushed up to meet them. Passengers in the cabin screamed as the landscape outside their windows grew clearer. Trees, roads, rooftops. Some grabbed hands. Some whispered final messages. Some simply stared at the quiet woman who'd walked into the cockpit earlier and prayed. She was everything she claimed. One little boy in seat 21F closed his eyes and whispered, "Please let the lady fly us home." Ilara felt something in her chest tighten. She couldn't afford to feel. Not yet. The altitude dropped fast. 700 feet. The F-35 pilot's voice pressed into her ear. "You're lined up. God help you. Phoenix, you're actually lined up." Ilara exhaled, dropping gear. The landing gear groaned, hesitated, then locked into place with a violent thunk. The captain's eyes widened. "They actually deployed." "Sometimes," she replied. "Machines just need someone who believes they still can." 300 feet. The runway stretched beneath them. Waiting, Ilara adjusted trim manually, every muscle in her arms burning. Sweat beaded down her temple. Her pulse didn't quicken. If anything, it slowed. Sharpening her mind, she whispered under her breath, "Jordan, I'm still not finished." The wheels hit the runway hard, so hard the entire aircraft ricocheted back up. A brutal bounce that threatened to send them airborne again. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks swung wildly. The co-pilot braced for collapse. But Ilara fought the inertia, fought gravity, fought the aircraft that desperately wanted to quit. She slammed the nose down with surgical force, letting friction eat speed. The brakes screamed like metal beasts. Smoke burst from the tires. Sparks flew. The plane skidded, veered left. She corrected, veered right. She corrected again. The F-35s pulled up sharply, giving her space. Every second felt like an hour. But the plane slowed, and slowed, and slowed until finally, mercifully, it rolled to a shaking, dying stop. Silence swallowed the runway. No one moved, no one breathed. Then, from somewhere deep in the cabin, a single sob broke free. Then another then applause, then uncontrollable cries of relief as passengers realized they were alive because of the woman who had stood up when no one else could. The captain exhaled in disbelief. "You, Phoenix. You just saved 186 people." Ilara slowly released the controls. Her hands were trembling now, her arms heavy, her breaths uneven. She nodded once. "We're safe. That's what matters." The co-pilot wiped his eyes. "Ma'am, you should be flying the whole world." Ilara smiled weakly, sadness flickering behind her gaze. "I did, once." Outside, emergency vehicles swarmed the runway. Fire engines, ambulances, ground crew sprinting to the aircraft. The two F-35s swooped low, roaring past the cockpit with a thunderous salute before circling back. They didn't land. They simply hovered above, watching her, guarding her. The radio crackled. "Phoenix, this is Talon," the lead F-35 pilot said softly. "We have orders to return to base. But before we do," his voice tightened, "it was an honor flying with you. My father, he served with Captain Jordan Hale. He spoke about you both often. Said no to pilots ever trusted each other more in the sky." Ilara's eyes stung for the first time. Talon continued, voice thick with emotion. "He told me once, Phoenix doesn't fly planes. She lifts them, and today, you proved him right." Ilara swallowed hard. "Your father, he flew with Jordan." "Yes, ma'am." A tear finally escaped down her cheek. "Then today," she whispered, "your father and Jordan flew with us again." The F-35 pilot didn't speak for a moment. When he did, his voice broke. "Yes, ma'am, they did." The jets rose higher, saluted one last time, and shot into the sky, leaving twin trails of white against the blue attribute written in vapor. Inside the cabin, passengers were lining up desperately to see her. The boy from 21F peeked into the cockpit doorway, eyes wide. Are you a superhero?" he asked. Ilara knelt down to meet his eyes. "No," she said softly, "I'm just someone who couldn't let you fall." He hugged her tightly. She didn't hesitate to hug him back. As paramedics entered, passengers erupted in applause, again shaky, emotional, overwhelmed. Phones recorded. Tears fell. No one would forget the miracle they'd just lived through. The captain turned to her. "Phoenix, they'll want interviews, news stations, medals." "No," she interrupted gently. "No cameras, no headlines. I'm not here for that." He hesitated. "Then why did you come?" Alara stood slowly, picking up her old leather backpack. Because someone once saved me when I didn't deserve it. Jordan always said, if you can do something, you must. If you can save even one life, you're already responsible. She looked out the cockpit window at the runway, the sky, the place she'd tried so hard to avoid. But today, I saved my own life too. She stepped out of the cockpit. The passengers parted as if the air around her demanded reverence. Some touched her hand. Some whispered thank you. Some simply watched, wondering how someone so human could do something so impossible. As she walked down the aircraft's stairs. Sunlight hit her face, warm and golden. The wind brushed her hair softly, like the sky welcoming her home. A reporter tried to break through the crowd. Ma'am, what's your name? Alara paused for only a moment. Then, without turning, she said, my name is Phoenix, and the world finally understood why the F-35s had spoken her name. She didn't stay for applause. She didn't wait for recognition. She simply walked toward the horizon toward Jordan's memorial, knowing he would have smirked and said, one hell of a landing, Alara, she whispered back to the wind. Now I'm finished. And now, I can rest. But somewhere, far above her, two jets streaked across the sky, flying in formation, guarding her path because legends don't walk alone. And Phoenix had risen again,